My name is Jay Wilkinson. I'm the CEO of FireSpring here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm going to share a story with you today that I've never shared publicly. I've shared this with my family and a few close friends. I'm going to share with you a true tale of girls, gifts, and guilt. And the story starts back in 2001 when I was preparing to go on an epic adventure to New Zealand with a really good buddy of mine from college. And I was feeling really guilty about the prospect of this trip, primarily because I had never been away from my kids for more than a couple of days at this point in time, and I was going to be gone for 2 weeks. One of my daughters struggled, I don't know what the words for it would be, let's call it separation anxiety. She was the one, as an illustration, when I was leaving one day from the house, the babysitter was there, and she grabbed a hold of my leg and held on for dear life, and we physically had to separate her from me as she's just wailing at the top of her lung, "Don't go, don't go, don't go." I said, as calm as I could, "Honey, I'm going to the movie. We'll be back in 2 hours. I promise we'll come back." This was her life up until she was a teenager. Also feeling guilty because this was a pretty self-indulgent trip. What was going to happen on this trip was stuff that I'd never done before. We were going to go bungee jumping off of river gorge bridges. We were going to jump out of perfectly good helicopters and planes, scuba dive with sharks, a lot of things that I had always wanted to do that I had never done before. And so again, I'm thinking this is going to be very difficult for me to leave. And there was also a better than 0% chance that I was never going to come home. So with all of these things on my mind, I had to start thinking about, all right, I need to assuage my guilt somehow. So what can I do possibly that might do something special for my girls? And my daughters at this point in time were age 6 and 9. They were very young. And our thing was storytelling. Every night before bedtime, we would read books. And over the course of their lifetime, hundreds upon hundreds of books. But my favorite story time was when we got to tell the next chapter in the never-ending saga of a character that we made up. Her name was Jennifer. And Jennifer was she oversaw this amazing land. It was a string of islands. And in the center island, there was a volcano that spewed hot chocolate, and it made rivers throughout the island. And of course, there were marshmallows floating in the rivers. There were candy cane flowers, and there were trees the size that were really candy bars. They were just gigantic. The beaches were made out of Skittles. I mean, it was just truly a magical, magical land. And I was thinking about this, processing all of this in my mind. All right, I'm going to do something with this. And what I decided to do as my big idea was to make a recording of myself reading their favorite books on tape. I was going to be gone for a total of 16 nights, so that was 8 cassettes, 2 stories per side. I happened to be a broadcasting major in college, so I had all kinds of tips and tricks. I literally spent more than 100 hours working on this story, including the xylophone that you hit that dinged so they could advance to the next page. I mean, I went all out on these things, and I remember being incredibly proud of the work that I'd put in. And I said to myself, this is going to be a gift that my daughters will remember forever. 2 days go by. I'm at the airport getting ready to fly out. My daughters reach out into their pocket, and she hands me this little kind of crumpled up piece of yarn that has some string tied around it. And she said, "Daddy, we made this for you." And she handed it to me, and I said, "Oh, thank you, sweetie. That's so sweet." Kind of with the same sincerity that I'd said the hundreds of other times that they gave me a gift that they've made. You know what I'm talking about. I've seen some of your refrigerators. And I'm thinking, okay, I went to all this work, and I was being so selfish in my brain about this. I went to all this work, and this is what they do. It's cool. And then they shared something with me that totally changed my perspective on everything. My daughter says, "Daddy, this is going to be a big trip, and we decided that you needed to take Jennifer with you." So this was Jennifer. That changed things. And then she says, "When you get lost, Jennifer will help you find your way. If you feel lonely, just give Jennifer a hug. And if you ever feel afraid to try anything, Jennifer will give you the courage to do it." And my mind flashed back instantly to the hundreds of times that when visitors came to Jennifer's magic land, Jennifer helped all these people that came to visit. Grandma, the cousins, Lizzie McGuire, all the visitors that came to this magic island were somehow transformed by the magical powers of Jennifer. And my daughters had given me this gift, but she wasn't done yet. I was fully expecting any second now for her to lunge forward and grab a hold of my leg, keep me from going down. But her posture changed a little bit, and she stood up a little straighter. Her eyes were glistening, about ready to cry. And I know this was hard for her, but she said, "Since Jennifer's with you, Daddy, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay." And I realized she wasn't saying that for me. I went down the ramp, got on the plane, I sat down, and I literally burst into tears sitting in that chair. I wept like a child myself, and I'm sure that the flight attendants were a little worried about who had just boarded their plane, because my daughters had given me in that moment a gift that I actually would remember forever. Now, I know that having daughters is not all rainbows and fairies. There are some tough moments. There are things that happen, and we get so frustrated sometimes. We just want to strangle them, in spite of the fact that we love them like, the world will never end. We love these beautiful ideas and precocious nature they have. But life is hard. We all know this. Life can throw things at us that we have to deal with. It will never be easy. And we've all experienced hard things in our life. Bad day, bad week. There's some people in this room that you probably had bad decades. I understand how this works. And you know what? No matter what life throws at us, we have to figure out how to get better. Maybe we've lost a pet, lost a job. 2002, about a year after this gift was given to me, I was actually fired as the CEO of my own company because we were about to go bankrupt. I somehow found the fortitude to push through. Jennifer was with me. In 2011, my mother was at the tail end of a long battle with breast cancer. And the family had gathered together in the living room. We had the adjustable hospital bed. We were all there. We knew it was towards the very end. She had stopped being responsive. And I crawled up in that bed with her, and I put my left hand behind her head, and I stroked her on the cheek. And I said, "Mom, we love you so much. You've been the best mother that anybody could ask for. But it's okay. It's time you can stop fighting now," because she had been fighting for days for whatever reason, because she didn't want to leave. But she left this world looking into the eyes of someone who loves her more than life itself. Jennifer was in my pocket that day. And Jennifer has been in my pocket no matter what, as a reminder to me of all of the things that make life important, a reminder of what is important in our world. A couple of years ago, I was playing this game, the Kids Book of Questions, and this question came up: if you were selected to be a contestant on Naked and Afraid, I chose Jennifer as my survival item. A simple gesture, innocently shared with me from a place of love instead of a place of guilt. And I learned from my 6- and 9-year-old daughters that the sweetest nectar of life comes when we allow ourselves to feel with our hearts instead of our heads. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, especially if we're feeling lost or lonely or afraid. With this philosophy, we can overcome anything, no matter what life throws at us. We can be bold, we can take risks, we can fail and get back up, because no matter what, everything's going to be okay. There were several of the speakers who shared the stage with me today that gave challenges about something to think about. And I'm going to challenge everybody the same thing. I encourage and challenge everyone here to think about being vulnerable. What can you do to open your heart and just be vulnerable? In my opinion, vulnerability is the single most important characteristic of a good leader, being vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable in the context of leadership, it doesn't diminish our credibility, it enhances it. And when we lead from a place of love, it doesn't compromise our power, it elevates it. So my challenge to everyone here is to take one thing that you heard from any of the speakers tonight. What's your one thing going to be? And do something different. What's the good of coming to something like this? Seriously, what's the good of coming to something like this and listening to a bunch of people get up and talk for 7 minutes if we don't take action on doing something, if we don't iterate on our lives and change something, do something different tomorrow than what we did today? I just encourage you to think about what's your one thing. Maybe when we break into the round tables later, people can share what you're going to do differently. On behalf of my fellow speakers, my friends and colleagues that have shared the stage with me, I want to say thank you to ICANN for giving us the opportunity to speak, but also thank you to everyone here who has given us the present of your time, just being present with us here today. We are deeply grateful for the opportunity. And in the words of my 6- and 9-year-old daughters, Claire and Ellen, everything's going to be okay. Thank you.